Please tell us your name, position, and a little bit about the school district where you work.
Certainly. My name is Dr. Paul Gausman. I am the superintendent of schools in the Sioux City Community School District. Sioux City is located in the northwest corner of Iowa. Sioux City is the fourth largest district in the state of Iowa with 14,332.46 students at this time. We are a district that is made up of a population that is about 65 to 67% free and reduced. We have about 20% of our students, it's 19.8% of our students, are English language learners. We have, depending on the time, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 home languages spoken in our district. We have 3 comprehensive high schools, 3 comprehensive middle schools. We have 17 elementary schools, and then of course a couple of alternative schools that help us accomplish our goals. We are a district that is the largest district in the state of Iowa with a one-to-one initiative in grades 6 through 12 as of next school year. We have some progressive programming in Career Academy high school career clusters and focus in that area. We've got 4 specialty elementary schools. We've got a number of different things going on. But at the root of what we're doing is this focus on frankly the Iowa Core, which includes the Common Core and standards-based work in our systemic thinking.
Go a little deeper into what way your school district is incorporating a standards-based system.
Sure, and we've been working on our standards-based system since we've been digging in on our own plan for implementation of the Iowa Core. We have done this through a number of different ways. One of the ways that's been very important to us has been that our school board started a number of years ago with a document that they put together for us. And the document is titled The Definition of the Well-Educated Student. And so this really is a board-led initiative, that portion of it, where the board defines for us what a graduate should know, understand, and be able to do. And then as boards do, they give us those outcomes that are expected. And then we've gone in and done the work to make certain that our educational system delivers those outcomes. And 4 years ago, we really invested in standards-based education, where we take a look at the standards that are there for any grade level and subject matter in the Iowa Core. Our teachers in our system all work together to select what we sometimes refer to as our power standards. Sometimes we call them essential standards. Sometimes we call them the reported standards, because they're all kind of the same thing. But as most would know, there are, at times can be 40 standards at a grade level and content area, and we really work with our teachers to find those that are most essential, so that when we begin our reporting process, and I realize we're not only talking about standards-based grading here today, but we select those that are most important to encapsulate the learning that goes on at that grade level and that content area. And we have been in a system such as this now for 4 years. We began with a single grade level. Single grade level in our district has about 1,100 students in it. And so we began with a single grade level and began rolling that up with teachers at different grade levels, different subject areas as we have gone through. So those we began, as I mentioned, at 3rd grade, and so those students are now, as I'm making this recording, in 6th grade, and we're continuing that focus on standards-based systemic thinking.
And in your opinion, has this benefited student achievement, and do you have data that supports it?
Yeah, we absolutely do. I mean, it's the notion of giving yourself more data by engaging in this system. We have it's better for the students, it's better for the educators, it's better for the parents and frankly community members, because what we're able to do is we're able to give them a great deal more information than we've ever given them before. There's been a lot of pressure on standards-based thinking lately, a lot of pressure on the core, and I think it's most of that pressure is born out of lack of background information. I don't think that it's from people who are not intelligent. I'm not arguing that. It has become somewhat political, and it's been argued that these standards that are coming from the core are part of a nationalized curriculum per se, which we all know that the core is not a curriculum. It's just a series of standards. And I would argue that those standards are the foundation that we should teach. We should exceed those standards to the way that our community might desire. And so to us, the standards aren't a pinnacle; they're a foundation. And so it's something where it's very obvious to me that the benefits are there for the students, for the staff members, and for the parents and community members and all others. But we've got to do more to educate. Standards came about from my own study in the 1983 document, A Nation at Risk, which was a document created by the Reagan administration. Yet a lot of the pressure on standards today is actually focused on a political ideology that would indicate it came from the other side of the political aisle, if you will. Certainly the first implementation of standards came through the Clinton administration. You roll forward to No Child Left Behind under the Bush administration, and you start to see more of that. We are better today than we have ever been because of the standards focus in No Child Left Behind. Yes, No Child Left Behind has things that need improvement, and we've got to look at ways to do things other than penalize school districts, but that standards-based focus is there. Our data that supports this, as a part of your question, really comes from that notion that standards-based systemic thinking gives you far more data. If you look at what a letter grade used to be in the early 1900s, a letter grade was simply a summary of that student's performance. And the reason they came up with letter grades and percentage performance was because at that time more and more students were being required to go to school through a compulsory attendance laws. And so teachers didn't have the time to give the spread of data any longer that they once gave through handwritten reports to families in the early 1900s, because more kids were coming into schools and they had to find a way to summarize how that student was doing. Today, because of the benefit of the standards, but also the benefit of technology, we can actually go back to the earlier days of doing a much more comprehensive report of student performance, because we have the benefit of technology to help us do so that we're able to tell the parents and students more about what we taught them, what they learned, and teachers are able then to take a look at diagnosing student performance through this system and prescribing instruction to make a difference.
One of the documents that participants read in this module comes from the Colorado Coalition for Standards-Based Education, and I know you've taken a look at that document. So in your opinion, what are the most important conditions that your school district has used to help effectively implement the standards-based system?
Well, it really starts with that comprehensive understanding of the standards themselves. I will admit, as a part of this conversation today, that at the time of this recording, our system is going through a little bit of a challenge, a public challenge about our reporting system, standards-based grading, if you will. Right now, all students in our district who are in grades pre-K, actually, transitional kindergarten, through 6 are on a standards-based system. And things went, frankly, fairly well for the first 3 years of the program. As we grew that into middle school, we started to get a little bit more pushback. And that pushback I welcome, because it helps us learn what our community is thinking. And frankly, that pushback has created more conversation in this community about assessments and reporting of student performance than we probably could have created on our own. And so sometimes you have to look at those challenges as opportunities for success. But the items that we really worked hard to implement when we started this in our 3rd grade was that notion of working with our teachers to select those most essential standards, what we refer to as our power standards, that are most important, and that the teachers worked to understand those, select those. It's not handed down from the superintendent's office. It's something that's created at that level. Our work then is to communicate to the parents and community members that if they happen to be guardians of children that receive the reports, that these are those standards that are most important. These are the things we're teaching your student. These are the things that we're going to use to report to you on student performance. And we have had some very positive success there. Where we have really received challenges is as it grows into the higher and higher grade levels. We have people that are beginning to push back a little bit because they don't understand how a standards-based system would impact a student as they're applying for scholarships or applying to get into a college or that kind of thing. And so we've learned that we've got much more education to do, and that's what I really like about this document and the structure that they have there. There are a number of districts in Colorado that are doing fantastic things with this. And as we might all acknowledge, a number of students from Colorado are just fine in getting into college, even though they're in a standards-based system and financial aid and those kinds of things. But our work is obviously not done because of this pressure that we're under at the time of this recording to do more to educate about the notion of a standards-based system is a system where we simply spell out for the learner, the teacher, and those who study both, the parents and guardians of children, what we've taught and how the student is performing in that particular arena. And that to me is the strength of what has worked for us. But I just feel appropriate to acknowledge how much further, we still have to go. We've got a long way to walk our community to a comprehensive understanding of this entire process.
In light of where you're going, from that document, are there any conditions that you feel are important and need improvement in your district?
Yeah, the work that we did originally and initially was really focused on district common assessments. We were hopeful that the State Department of Education in Iowa would begin to develop those common, at least summative assessments for us, other than just the Iowa assessments or what may become Smarter Balanced. We don't know at this time. But the notion that, let's just pick a subject matter, in our buildings, we teach Algebra 1 in Sioux City in 6 different buildings. And in those 6 different buildings, there are multiple teachers in each building that teach Algebra 1. At the time we began this work, there were, frankly, the assessments that would occur at the end of the quarter, semester, quarter, and year were designed by the teacher. They were not collaborated upon, and so there weren't necessarily groups of teachers that were doing that. One of the strengths that came about from that was this notion of, today, regardless of where you take Algebra 1 in the Sioux City Community School District, just using that as an example again, you will take the same assessment at the end of the quarter, semester, quarter, and year. We've created that level of consistency that's there. The challenge that's brought about, however, is that we're relying too much, in my opinion, on just multiple choice question assessments. We've got to do more. We certainly understand that standards-based systematic thinking is about criterion reference. So much of what we do through federal requirements, through the Iowa assessments, is normative. It's standardized, if you will. If there's a question on a standardized test that everyone could get right, it's a bad question. It's thrown out. If there's a question that everybody gets wrong, it's a bad question. It's thrown out. It forces us all to that bell curve. Standards-based thinking doesn't start by comparing student performance to student performance. We're not comparing the students to one another. Standards-based thinking causes us to focus on student performance compared not to one another first, but compared to the standards that we've taught them, what we've taught them and how they've learned it. We've got to do more, in answer to your question, in our own district to develop multiple measures of data that will allow us to accurately report student performance as it relates to their performance on a specific standard without only using a multiple choice question test. And we're getting better at that all of the time, but we've got to do more to create a level of consistency district-wide so that I know in a standards-based system, if my child took Algebra 1 at one of 6 different buildings, that they would receive basically the same kind of feedback on their performance on those standards, regardless of where they were. Because if we normalize or standardize that, it will really only fall in terms of their performance against the kids that they're standardized against that happen to be in that one of 6 buildings. We don't want to start there. We want to start by using our criterion reference system. We've got a little bit more to do there. Another thing that we've got to do is to do more, as I've indicated in an earlier answer, to gain family and community support. As we've grown up into later grade levels, the resistance has grown with us a little bit because there's less understanding about what these standards and our reporting of student performance on the standards, what that might do to a student as they look to leave our district and go to two-year school, four-year school, military, that kind of thing. And so we've got a lot of work to do in communication there. No matter how well you communicate, you can always do a better job, and we need to do a better job in that arena as well.
Thank you. What additional advice would you offer to educational leaders in Iowa thinking of implementing a standards-based system?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that this is the right work. I know that at times with staff members, you get a little bit of resistance because they treat this like they do some other initiatives that kind of flow through education. If I hold my breath long enough, this will go away. Community members, they may push back on you because, frankly, they don't understand it. I would ask administrators and teachers, no matter where they were, when they see the resistance, don't become frustrated by that because that resistance is instructive. Really listen to that resistance that's there and try to learn from that where the community members are basically indicating to you that they don't have comprehensive understanding, and really work to improve your own communication about that. It's very important that we take the opportunity to learn from that resistance that's there. I'm going to end it, though, the way that I started it, which is to say this is absolutely the right work. Nothing that's come through education in recent years has had this level of this personal and what I think research-based support from me. And regardless of resistance of community members that don't quite understand it, regardless of staff members that are maybe a little slow to implement, we need to keep pushing forward on this patiently, with a great deal of communication and respect and empathy, but we've got to keep pushing forward because it's the right work, it's the right thing for students.
Thank you for your time today.